So where would you say, based on the action that the countries have taken in your years of living, um, where we have gotten with the assimilationist approach versus the separationist approach?
Anyone who's tried the separationist approach has either been exploited or killed. So, so I just feel like that is like a closed door as far as far as I'm concerned. Like, because you need a certain amount of power to bring that to fruition, and I don't think anybody has remotely had that who's ever attempted it. And I don't see any. I do see people with enough power to try to do something like it currently, but those people are not going to do that. So I basically just consider it a closed door. So it's not really that I am like saying that integration is better or like the better way. It's just like there is a way there, like I'm literally at the level of like, if I can see the smallest sliver of probability, that's where I'm going, because that's where hope lies. And unfortunately, when we're dealing with this context, we're dealing with slivers of probability that we're trying to expand into greater probabilities. That's what we're doing. So
But I feel like it hasn't really done much for. I don't know.
it has done so much, brother. The life you're living. Come on.
Here's the challenge, right? So I guess I don't operate from the extreme end of the fear, where it's like anyone who's tried the approach, they've killed. Because if I'm looking at the amount of leaders, it's still far few. It's like, I don't know how many. I don't know, 20, 30 or so within this lifetime of what we know of. And when I'm looking at 8 billion people, I'm kind of like, the tactic of which they used during slavery was you kill one, hang him, mutilate his body, and then the rest are afraid to then challenge the system. And so I guess I feel sometimes that we're here at the point where we have been subdued to a level where it's like, well, our most successful movements were things where we isolated, separated, or challenged the system without being infiltrated by those who then whitewashed our messaging and then have kept us in the position that we're still in today through the assimilationist approach. And so, like for me in my household, right, I don't need somebody from my church or wherever the case might be coming in to tell me what to do or how to live my life if I've been living fine. You can be over there in your house and addressing the same issue without us having to do the exact same things or be together to do it. Because we're not going to church, we're not eating together, maybe an occasional bar, but we have our separate environments. And this happens globally, because even today you can go to areas and it's still known, like even in Brazil, this is the white part, and these are where these type of experiences happen. And these are common understanding. Like even in Europe, they know where the Nazis are. And so I'm like, so when you have that awareness and that understanding of like, oh no, they've accepted these groups and they've already isolated them themselves or created the policies, and this is how they address it. And we have all these solutions around the world for how they tackle or deal with poverty or dilapidated conditions. And these are solutions that they use internationally. I'm like, why can't we take some of these approaches and apply it to our own systems and our disadvantaged people here?
Yeah,
because they know
we can, right? But we don't. It's a choice. We don't have the political will of the people in power to actually make that happen, and it's because of entrenched interests, like you said. So I'm sure you're aware of that. So like, I mean, that's why I'm not considering government as a means of making these changes. And unfortunately, government largely is the most logical way to create the changes that you're talking about. So like
ideas like social media as a platform, that if you look at what Elon Musk is doing on Facebook, they've gotten to the point where their platform or idea has gotten so powerful that they're literally getting people to quit in government, prime ministers, between London, between Canada, all because of what Elon Musk might say about them. And so I'm like, here's what I guess where I'm challenged. As Black people, we have these limitations around us. And one of the things of which I tried to break with my travel was like, you're not going to cage my mind into the world of which your confines or your construct say, here are our limitations, nor am I going to be afraid. So I would go to these countries where they'd be like, oh, don't go, it's dangerous. It's like, yeah, okay, but this is my mom's country, or these are Muslims, and why do I have to think that they're bad just because you all think this way? Because you all believe this is the only approach or solution, or because you all think this is an approach or solution because they're examples and the remnants of what they focus on versus the examples that were successful even to this day. Because if I'm looking at where did Black people go after Obama, okay, on paper and theory, sure, you can read in the books and they can put in the algorithms that, yes, Obama was a president, so we're post-racial. So the database can now incorporate all his speeches to make it appear for a future generation as this is where we were. But as we've known throughout history, they've always lied about it. And so if they've been disingenuous about their approach of so-called assimilation or working together or these humanity goals or democracy, but then you look at their actions and you're like, well, if your action as a man of actions, like if your actions for the last hundreds of years and even more recently, 9/11 is just a more recent example of something that has been a pattern throughout their history. So it's almost as though they've drawn their line in the sand after 9/11, even with an assimilationist Black president with no male children, mind you, but he had daughters, he's surrounded by women, so again, less threatening, no kingmakers, and yet they went further backwards, reversing civil rights, voting rights, women's rights. Schools are still segregated. We had COVID that affected people of minority backgrounds the most. And so when I'm looking at these things, I'm like, when do we say enough is enough? When do we believe them? Or as what did Maya Angelou say? When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And I'm like, I don't know how many chances that we've given them, but if it's not the great grandparents plus plus the parents plus the children, it's like, okay, I don't know. Call me crazy, but it seems like
What does it seem
someone
like?
doesn't. So it's like, do I leave them in that space? Or do I try to force this change?
I mean, everyone's got to answer that for themselves. I mean, all I can say is that despite the narrative that you just created there, like there have been white people fighting against racism like all those hundreds of years. Like people have been fighting. And so like I personally, I'm never going to give up hope. Just like to me, those people are my heroes and I owe it to them and to myself and to everyone else to keep going. So that choice is easy for me. But I will say, in terms of when are we going to say it's enough? Like I done said it, and so have many, I think that it's not that we're not saying it or believing that. It's like what actions do we take based on that declaration? We have a very limited, regardless of what you see around the world, you don't see it here for a reason. And the reason isn't like our mindset or like we're not seeing things clearly per se. I don't believe that is the case. It's a matter of power. It's a matter of power. All of those things in those other countries came to fruition because a significant power made them come to fruition. We are lacking that in the United States of America. And so either we have to create such a power, in my view, or you are just resigned to whatever the next malfeasance is. I know what I want to choose, but like everybody's not down. I remember having a conversation with I went to the University of Rochester. I made friends in the city of Rochester, New York, and I remember having a conversation on a walk with a friend of a friend, racialized Black guy. He's got a baby on the way and stuff. And we're having this conversation about, not directly about race and racism, but like, we're touching on it here and there. But it's more about like the Black community, right? And Black people. And what are we doing, And he said, I'm not trying to be a soldier in a war. And I said, bro, you're already at war. I say you're already. I say you're already fighting. Like, what do you? And it just. So, and he had nothing to say to that, of course, like he just, the wheels are turning and he's just like, I can't even say he's wrong, but so there's a lot there, it's like what you said earlier. People want to focus on their own circles, right? Their own individual families, their own kids, their own individual lives. And they don't want to think beyond that. And that lends itself towards, willful ignorance, of the issues and learned helplessness of thinking that nothing's going to work. But you and I both know that things do work. Things can work if people actually support initiatives that are working towards a more liberatory future. And ultimately, people are not doing that. And that is the frustrating part. Thanks for watching. For access to the full-length conversation and all of the 2-hour-long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support and see you next time.